Good morning, everybody. It is November 1st. I can't believe that we've already plowed through this much of the year already and we're on to another month, but as we are. I just wanted to pop on, this is a little bit different video take because I'm in Facebook jail. I can't post videos because I keep trying to post videos with amazing music in them that Facebook doesn't like. So we're gonna do it this way. The cool thing about it is we can access this kind of video in a few different ways aside from it being on Facebook Live. So if there is content in this video that you feel someone in your life could benefit from or that you want to share, please feel free to do that. I will just briefly introduce myself in case you do share it with somebody who doesn't know me. My name is Aryn Savard, and among many things, the most recent and exciting part of my life and my business is moving into helping women get unstuck, helping them see possibility and purpose in their life, and moving back to a place of joy instead of sacrifice. So that's my motivation. And today what I wanted to talk about is a couple of things. And I actually have a list of notes, which I don't often do. Most of the time I just like free flow it. But there's a lot of items that I wanted to put in here, and I will try and keep it succinct so that we can get through them all. But I will start and be honest right off the bat. I am going to talk about my Ignite workshop, which is happening in a few weeks. So that's going to come at the end. But the development of this workshop has led me into some of the topics that we're going to talk about today. These are also topics that I have gone through in my own life, both personally and as a business owner. And the one thing that I wanted to start with is this concept of our worthiness. This has come up a lot with clients that I've worked with one-on-one, as well as it seems to be coming up continually in the workshops that I'm teaching. For whatever reason, it could be many, but usually it starts with something that someone told us or an experience that we had when we were younger. In that we develop this, we go from this place of feeling like we are infinitely possible, that we could create and do anything, that we are infinitely powerful, and that the world kind of is our oyster. And then something happens, somebody says something to us or something happens in our life that starts to juxtapose this concept that we've been living with, meaning that we have on one side, we're born with this ability to see our infinite potential and that we are worthy of everything that the world has to offer. And then all of a sudden somebody is in front of us that says something, or we have an experience that is in direct opposition to that. And so we start to take in this evaluation of other people's opinions and the experiences that we have with other people, and they start to diminish our belief in our worthiness. And so I really feel that this starts to govern our decision-making processes. And I think particularly even more as women than as men. But we start to change what we engage with. We start to change what we choose to pursue. And we start to change how we show up in life based on these previous experiences that have somehow jaded or altered our belief of our worthiness. And the challenge with that is they're not always true. And most of the time they're not, these outside opinions, these outside experiences. It's just that it was in opposition to what we were originally thinking. And in order to continue to fit in order to avoid the pain of judgment, in order to somehow skirt around the uncomfortability of somebody disagreeing with us, we then start to change who we are, and we start to change our belief in the fact that we are worthy of all things, and that when something inspires us and something sparks us and we're like, oh, that sounds really good, instead of pursuing that thing, we start to then pull from this previous place of suppression, this previous place of somebody not believing in us, or somebody not believing that we're worthy or smart enough or good enough. And that's then what starts to alter our course. So we come again from this inspiration, this inside feeling of, oh my gosh, that feels so good, I want to engage in this. And then we start to evaluate that, and we start to back down out of that, and we start to pull in these outside previous experiences, and that's what starts to navigate us away from this thing that we were inspired to do or be or engage with. And so I think it's really, really important that we start to identify some of that stuff, and we start to understand that it's not that we're not worthy. It's that something happened somewhere along the line that put like a pin in the map for you, that you keep gravitating back to this pin instead of finding a different pathway, or instead of engaging in what it is that you really, really, really want to be doing. You keep gravitating back toward this pin because it's forefront in your mind. So I encourage you guys in those moments to really challenge where that story is coming from, where that place of disbelief is coming from, because we are all infinitely worthy. And I truly believe that, just because I have a meditation on it. So if anybody is like interested in that, it's this really cool affirmation statement that only takes about 7 minutes that helps us understand that we are worthy of absolutely everything simply because you're here. The reason you are put here on this planet is because you have worth and infinite potential, and you can do anything that you want with it. We just start to disbelieve that, and we start to really work in this material plane of existence, meaning I'm just going to do what I see in front of myself. I'm going to believe and take in what these words are from someone else because it's material. When if we just sit with ourselves and we start to connect with what's bigger than us, this infinite energy field that is out there, when we connect back into that, it brings us back into this place of understanding that I am completely unique on this planet. There is nobody that's put together like me. Nobody has the same drive. Nobody has the same dreams. Nobody has the same DNA structure from a science standpoint. And just because I was put together that way means that I am infinitely capable of all kinds of amazing shit in this world. I just need to get out of my own way and make it happen. And come back to that point of belief that I am capable of all things. Yes, I got to do the work, but I am capable of it. So if I'm inspired to do something, if something is pulling at me and I'm like, ooh, I really need that in my life, then how about let's approach it from this place of what is possible and how could I, instead of, no, I can't, I'm not worthy, and you start to get into this game and this guilt and shame situation. So I think we can apply that to a lot of things. But what sparked this concept for me is when I put out these workshops, I think a lot of people go through these kinds of concepts. When they see the inspiration of the workshop, they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds so good. I need this in my life. And then they start talking themselves out of it for a whole number of reasons. And I guess part of my motivation is that I want people to recognize their patterns in all of this, no matter what it applies to. But also, I want you guys to experience my workshop, and I'm going to talk about this. So I'm not going to be shameful about plugging this workshop and that I think it's valuable. But in putting this out there, I'm like, what is people's resistance? And so then I go back to my own experiences in things that I've invested in or things that I've wanted to do. And so these, again, are processes that I've gone through. These aren't just unique to the workshop and what I want to put out there. So the second thing is I want to talk about the story around I don't have the money. So a lot of times we get inspired to do something and we want to engage in it, and we get really excited about it, and then we look at the price tag and we have this instant constriction or reaction to then further evaluate or try and see if we have the money for it. And I think on the larger scale, this is true. We can't overexpend. We can't put money out if we don't have some way of bringing it back in. I don't ever want people to be in a place of financial hardship for lack of their ability to see how this is going to benefit their life. So I think that's the first piece in all of this, is when we have this story of I don't have the money to, I think we need to see, how is this going to add value to my life? Sometimes it isn't a direct financial return, and sometimes it's more in an energetic return. So I'm going to put money out because money really is just an energy exchange, right? It's a paper thing, but really half the time we don't even have paper anymore. It's this electronic transfer. So it's an energy exchange. I have something and I'm going to exchange it for something else. So when we start to understand what that value is in our life, it's much easier to go, okay, I'm gonna not exchange my energy over here for a little bit so that I can collect it and exchange my energy over here instead. So it's not just money out. Like I said, sometimes the financial return is there. Sometimes you invest in a workshop or you invest in a book and it seems like it's just a learning tool at the moment or a celebration tool at the moment. But then it's going to be something that you internalize that it then is going to motivate and catalyze you in a whole bunch of other ways that you wouldn't if you didn't engage. So understanding that energetic exchange is really, really big because there is usually a return and sometimes you just have to figure out how it's going to come back to you. Now, in those moments where there is no return, there is no energetic exchange, and you can't see how it's going to add value, then you should absolutely say no. And a lot of times this comes as something that somebody shares with us, right? They think we might be interested, or it's something that somebody else is doing. And then when you look into it further, you're like, no, I don't really see the value there. So you should definitely put that aside and not do it. But the other thing that comes in is this story of I don't have the money to because you can't see the money at the moment, right? Maybe there's a lot of money going out right now. But I firmly believe that if you really strongly feel like something is going to add value in your life, there's ways to find it. And oftentimes for us right now, it's in these small, really insignificant, inconsequential expenditures that we have. So things like coffee. When you spend your money out to go get coffee, I know for me, coffee is an activity. Sometimes it's something that wakes me up and I need the caffeine, but for the most time it's an activity. It's something that's going to fill my time for a moment. If I have time to travel from to and fro somewhere and I have like 15 minutes time to kill. It's also a comfort food for me. And it's an activity, it's an event. And so things like that are really not that important in the grand scheme of my life. I can go without those things in order to save up or have that energy expenditure to be able to exchange somewhere else. So there are places that you can find in your life that you could conserve that energy exchange, save it for something else, and then put it toward that. There's also a lot of ways that you can call money in your life. There are ways that you can create money or call it in. There's a service maybe that you could provide. There is a collection maybe that you could do. There is something that you could sell. We all have stuff in our closets that we don't need, stuff in our house that we don't actually need or use. You could sell that kind of stuff if it means that you are then going to be able to use that for a really beautiful energetic exchange. So this story, that this initial knee-jerk reaction we have that I don't have the money to do this, really, I think if we thought about it a lot and we found the value, we understood the energetic exchange and we got creative about how we could call that in, I think that we could really solve and really get rid of that story in our lives in a lot of places. So I challenge you guys, if there's areas in your life that you find yourself saying, I don't have the money to, sit with it just a little bit longer. See if you can find that energetic exchange that you're looking for to add the value outside of just the dollar point. And then say, how can I be creative about calling this money in so that I can create this energetic exchange and it's not a stressful event. So look at the areas in your life that you're seeing that happening and see if there's ways that you can be creative about that. And if it happens to be my workshop, great. And then the last thing is celebration. I really feel like we are missing this event of celebration in our life. I feel like our to-do lists are really, really long. I feel like we're plowing through things just because it's stuff that we're supposed to get done. And when we have really beautiful things in our lives, we forget to celebrate them. And now celebration can be a number of things. It doesn't mean this massive, huge party that you have to throw or, a really expensive car or a really expensive handbag. Like it doesn't have to be those kinds of things. They can be if that is going to be a moment of yours that you are really going to sit and soak in and you're really going to be present in and you're going to take in all of the energy and the beauty around whatever it is that you've come to be celebrating. Then it's important to do that. But they can be small things, guys. It can be as simple as grabbing a new mug, something that you're going to come back to over and over and over. And as you hold that mug and you have your coffee, because I've said before, coffee is an event for me, it's going to remind you of those places and those things or whatever it is that you've come to be celebrating in your life. And the celebration doesn't have to be some massive material conquering of life. It literally could be a shift in your way of thinking. When you feel like you've gotten to this point of expansion and you're like, I've worked really hard to shift how I've thought about this. So now I'm going to have this point of celebration. It can be something as simple as a win that you are like, I really need to focus. I really need to make sure that I'm making this happen in my life. And when you do that, you're like, I did it. I did it for a week. This is amazing. Now I'm going to celebrate. Maybe it's that you are sick and tired of, this is my personal story, sick and tired of making everything really, really difficult in your life. And you've had something happen where you have moved out of that. You felt a shift. You felt yourself engage in joy instead of sacrifice. And in that moment, you're like, yes, this requires celebration. And sometimes, you guys, you just need to celebrate the fact that you are surviving and you are getting through right now. This has been a really hard, I'm going to call it like 18 months. It's been longer than a year, and it's been really hard for a lot of people. There's been a lot of loss. There's been a lot of call to action in terms of self-development, in terms of our thinking processes, in terms of rising, in terms of engaging. We've been called to do a lot of things, and we've been experiencing a lot of things. And that's a big reason why I'm putting on this workshop, this Ignite workshop called All the Feels. I feel like we're at a point in time right now where we need to celebrate everything that we have come through, everything that we have chosen to be a warrior in, everything, every time we have sunken our claws in and just held on and been able to lift our head up and take another breath one more time. It is time to celebrate that, you guys. And celebration is huge, particularly for women. One, because we are experiential creatures. We live through our senses, we live through our intuition. And when we can plant ourselves and root ourselves for a moment and take a deep breath and have an experience that celebrates everything that we are, that catapults us, that fills us up. It creates energy for us to be able to move forward and to do it again. And we are missing that in our culture. The other reason celebration is important is because it should involve other people. Our celebration should not just be solo. We do a lot of our life solo. Our whole society is solo. So when we celebrate, you guys, it needs to be in some sort of community. And whether that's with a girlfriend, whether that's with your family, or whether it's something like this workshop where you can come together with like-minded women and learn to celebrate everything that every woman in there is this really beautiful symbiosis that starts to happen. And as one person celebrates and cheers on the celebration of another person, or they just hold space for this person to say, I did it and I am achieving and I am a warrior, that then starts to amplify. Instead of just one happening, instead of one being having the solo experience, we all start to hold space for this. And it becomes this larger grid work of this really beautiful energy. And it starts to become expansive. And we all start to get to benefit from all of that. It's not just one person doing one thing. When we start to celebrate and we start to hold space for and see the possibility in others, it starts to come back to us. And we start to believe that we are more possible, that we are more worthy, and that we can celebrate everything that we have to offer in life. So those three concepts, you guys, are individual in nature. They can be applied to so many different things in your own life. But I also really strongly feel that if you, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ignite. So if you're like, here comes the sales pitch, you're right, here comes the sales pitch. Because I really firmly believe that this is something that is going to be valuable for every woman that's out there, especially in the course of this last 18 months of life. So if you're like, no, I don't want to hear it, fine, you can turn the video off, totally cool. But I am going to tell you about it, and I want you to use also these principles that we talked about when you think about this workshop.